Hi class, in this video I'm going to go over chapter 13 in the first book, archiving and transferring files. The first program I want to talk about is tar. Tar is a program that's going to allow us to take a bunch of files, put them in one file and compress it. It's kind of like a zip file. Originally, this program was designed for backup tapes. Hard disk or random access, meaning you can go to any file at any location on the hard disk. When you're dealing with those reel-to-reel backup tapes, they're linear. For you to get to the third file, you have to fast forward over the first two. So when they needed to put files on a backup tape, what they would do is do something called tarballing. I'm going to write it here on my screen. And you would end up with something called a tarball. The command to do that was tar. And it was taking all the files, butting them up to one another so they're very linear, and then compressing them. Then once you've compressed them, you could then put them on the backup tape. We don't really use, well, I don't want to say that. We still use backup tapes, and they're still linear, but this is a way to put files on a backup tape. We also just use it to compress a file, a bunch of files together and share them on the internet. So we're going to look at the command tar. We can do three things to a tar file. And I can't find them here. We can create, which is a -C or a -- create. This is a big tar file right here. So we can create a tar file. We can extract a tar file, which is this command right here, or we can list a tar file, which is -T or -- list. So I'm going to tar -C to create. The file name I want to create, I'm going to put in the temporary directory, which is TMP, and I'm just going to call it etc.tar. And the directory I want to back up is the etc directory. So when it backs it up, it's going to take that leading slash off the directory. So when I do a tar list file, I want to see what's inside of that tar file. I can see all those files that are in that tar. And it also does the subdirectories as well. But the error message that I got was it removed that leading slash. Now the tar file that I just created was uncompressed. And we could compress it by using 3 different compression technologies. I could do, I'm going to remove this file, remove -RF temp etc.tar. I just deleted it. So I'm going to do tar, create a tar file, compress it with gzip technology. If you remember in the class, I talked about GNU, the company, and Richard Stallman, and how he created a bunch of programs for the Linux operating system that he modeled after the Unix operating system. Whenever they create a program, they put the word Z in front of it. So gzip is the GNU's version of zip that we're used to. So I'm going to do, I'm using the gzip compression technology, and the file name is going to be etc. No, I'm going to put it in the temp directory. It's going to be etc tar.gzip. Then I'm going to back up the etc directory. I'm going to do it again, but this time I'm not going to compress it. So I'm going to do it again without compression. So here I backed up the etc directory with no compression. Here I backed up the etc directory with compression. So I'm going to do a list, temp, etc asterisk, so I can see both those files. The one with compression is called etc tar gzip, and the one without compression is etc tar. And I'm going to do list long so I can see the file size. And I can see that the compressed version of the file is a lot smaller than the uncompressed version. So right now, this is using the gzip technology. I could use bzip too, a different type of technology, instead of gzip. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to change the name. I'm going to recompress it with gzip. Sorry, the system is kind of lagging, so when I hit the up arrow, there's like a delay. Okay, they're using gzip technology. Now I'm going to use bzip technology. And the extension that we normally see with bzip is bz2. It's just a different compression algorithm. You know, some people prefer gzip, some people prefer bzip2. And I think the bzip2 does better compression though. But I think the gzip is more popular. So we're going to look at the file sizes. And you can see that the bzip is even smaller still. So it's a better compression technology than gzip, but I think gzip was the first one out and still a lot of people use it. But by no means is gzip not popular. There's another compression technology. It's called XZ compression. It's not a very inventive name. It's just called XZ compression. If you read the book, it's XZ. That's the name of the compression technology. So if we want to compress with that, the extension would be XZ, and it will be an uppercase J to use that compression technology. The extension has nothing to do with the compression technology. It's kind of just indicating to us what sort of compression technology they've used. Z is for gzip, J is for bzip2, and uppercase J is for XZ compression. So let's look at all three of those files. And you can see that XZ is even smaller still. So the top file is with no compression. You know, we just tarred the files together, meaning we butted one file up against another and saved it into one file. And then this is bzip2 compression technology. This is gzip. And this is XZ compression technology. I've never had a file that I've dealt with that used XZ, but it clearly is the better compression technology of the three. So if I wanted to list those files, I would do tar, list, and then I would specify, guys, these orders can be in any, the order of the switches can be in any order that you want, but the file name always have to come after F. So that's why I always put it last. Instead of doing this, I could do, you know, it's just too much typing. So I'm going to list the last file, etc, no, temp, etc, .tar, .xz. When I just list a file, I don't need to really specify the compression technology. So I'm going to uncompress a file. So I'm going to first make a directory inside my temp directory called etc backup. I'm trying to stick with the terms that the book is using. Again, this is chapter 13. So I'm going to tar, instead of listing, I'm going to extract file temp etc .tar into temp etc backup. I might have this wrong, guys. Let me see. No, I need to go here. I need to go into that directory. So I'm in that directory. Now I need to untar it. Tar xf / etc tar, and it will uncompress it into the current directory. List, there's all my directories. There's my etc directory that I backed up. CD, I could restore this to the original location, but I don't want to. I don't want to write over my current etc. So this is what I backed up and restored. So I'm going to remove it. That just removed the thing I just uncompressed. So now I'm going to uncompress the next file. Tar extract file temp Now, when I extract it, if there's a compression technology, I have to specify which compression technology. So the first file I extracted didn't have any compression at all. So the next file I'm going to uncompress is the gzip file. So etsy.tar.gzip. Okay, and again, there's the directory I just uncompressed. So when I extracted this one, there was no compression. When I extracted this one, I had to specify the compression. I could, I'm going to do this, copy, temp, etsy tar, I'm going to copy that file to my current directory. I'm going to remove Etsy. Okay, I have that file. I could gzip Etsy I could uncompress it. Sorry, I need to extract it. Okay, gzip, if I use gzip alone, it would take a file and compress it for me. If I use gunzip, that's not gunzip, that's gunzip, that will uncompress a file. So when I did this command up here, it uncompressed it and untarred it. But if I do this command, gunzip, it'll just uncompress it but leave me a tar file. The problem by using this method, where I uncompress it first, then I untar it, I destroy my original compressed file. So when I unzip this file and I look, I no longer have my compressed version of the file. So it overwrites the original compressed version and just gives me an uncompressed version. At that point, I would have to manually tar I would have to uncompress it, then untar it. This command right here uncompressed and untarred it at the same time, but it never touched the original file. My original file is still compressed in that directory. By unzipping it first, then untarring it, I lose my compressed version of the file. But when I untar it, I still have my tar file. I think it's more efficient to uncompress and untar at the same time. Your original file is still left alone. By unzipping it first, then untarring it, I lose my compressed file. So I'm going to delete everything in this directory. So here's where I uncompressed, here's where I untarred the original uncompressed file. Here's where I decompressed and untarred my gzip file. Now I'm going to tar extract. It's a bzip file, and the file name that I want to do is temp etsy tar bz2. So here's what I did was uncompress and untar the bzip2 file. I could uncompress and untar an XZ compressed file. Same result. When I do stuff like this, I also do, I'm a gzip file guy, so I always use gzip. So I could do verbose, gzip, extract, file, etc, temp, etc tar.gzip. V for verbose, it's using gzip technology, extract file. But as it extracts, it shows me what it's extracting. I could do extract extract verbose gzip technology, and it would get the same results. The only thing that I need to be concerned with is I need to make sure that the file name is right after F for file name. So that is tar. I'm going to pause the video and see what I need to go over next. Okay class, now I'm going to show you how to copy files from one server to another. I'm going to use server 1 as my SSH client and server 2 as my SSH server. Just to be sure we're back to our original default settings for the SSH server, I'm going to go to server 2. I'm going to edit this file, which is our SSH daemons configuration file. I just want you to verify on server 2 that permit root login equals yes, and the password authentication equals yes. If you've made any changes, press escape, WQ, and then I want you to restart your SSH server. Once you're done with that, let's go back to our SSH client. Server 1 is also an SSH server, but I'm not using the server on this. I'm only using the SSH server here, and I'm using server 1 as my client. So I'm going to do host name, and I'm going to verify I'm on VM1. If you're not, type exit until you connect back to VM1. I'm going to do SSH key gen and make sure I have a public and private key. I did already, but I'm going to do it again. I had to overwrite my old key. So I created a new public and private key. I didn't need to, but I just want to make sure everyone has a public and private key. Then I'm going to do SSH copy ID to root at VM2. I'm going to type in my password, and it added the key. So now when I SSH to root at VM2, I can sign in with no password. I'm going to type exit again. I don't need to type root, because if I don't put a user account, it'll try to use the user account that I'm signed in one right now. And again, I was able to connect to VM2 with no password. So the goal of this is to copy a file from server 1 to server 2. And so what I'm going to do is, let's say I need a backup of all my home directories, which is under the home. All my users' home directory will be under the directory called home. So I'm going to do tar. I could do verbose, use gzip technology, compress. The file name I'm going to compress to is temp home.tar.gz. Sorry, I can't do verbose when I create. Maybe it would be helpful if I put the directory I want to back up. I forgot to put which directory I want to back up. Let me see if the verbose will work. Yeah, it does. So the verbose is just showing me what I'm backing up. There's the command again. So basically I backed up everything in home to this file. Now I want to copy it over to the other machine. So SSH is a very robust program. Not only does it allow me to connect remotely to another machine and run commands, it will also allow me to copy a file from one machine to another. And we're going to use something called secure copy. That's using SSH and it's going to copy the file from this machine to the machine that I specify. So I'm going to do temp home, that's my backup file. Then I'm going to put VM2 colon and where I want to back it up to. Let's say I want to put it in the temp directory. So that's the server I'm going to do it, connect to. That's the directory I'm going to put it in. Now, I can automate this at night. I can automatically connect to a machine, back the machine up, then copy the file over. You know, with SSH keys, you notice that it didn't prompt me for a password. So because I'm using keys, you know, I can do a lot of automation doing backups. This might not be the best backup program. There's another one called CPIO, but for the purpose of this chapter, we're just going to use tar and gzip. I could have done this. I could have specified a user account. And again, to do a backup like this, I need to be root because I need to be able to read all the files. If I try to back up another user account's files using this student account, say, I might not have permission to read them. So in a case like this, I had to use the root account to do the backup. So basically, I ran this command. To back up all my files, and then I used this command to copy them over to the other server. We can even do that with Windows as well. There's a program called Winscp. You can download this program. You can take your files off your Windows box and send them over to a Linux box using SSH, or copy files off the Linux box over to the Windows box. So there's a nice little utility that'll do that. If you just want to use just remotely connect to a Linux box, you can use PuTTY, and that would use SSH. It'll turn your Windows 10 machine into an SSH client. Okay, I'm going to pause the video and look at the next topic. Okay, for this next section, what we're going to do is using an interactive secure copy. There is a program called Secure File Transfer Protocol. Excuse me, Secure File Transfer Program. And I'm going to do, this is important. Before you go into that program, go to the directory where the files exist. So I'm going to go into my temp directory. So I'm in the temp directory. That's the directory that includes my zip file. So I'm going to do Sftp, Secure File Transfer Program, and it uses the SSH protocol. I'm going to sign into VM2. So now I'm connected to VM2. If I do a list or pwd, that tells me I'm in my current root directory on VM2. So everything I'm looking at here is on VM2. So I'm going to, let's say I wanted to copy to the temp, I'll copy it to the temp directory. I'm going to cd into temp. Now I'm on the temp directory on VM2. And at this point I could say put home.tar.gz. And at that point it will copy it over. If I wanted to, I could say, I'm not sure if this will work, put etc password. Yeah, it did work. In this case, I put the relative path because on VM1, when I went into the program, I was in the same directory as home.tar.gz. So I don't need to put the path of where it's at because I'm in that directory on VM1. But if I wanted to put a file over on VM2, but it's not in my current directory, I'm supplying the fully qualified path, meaning go to the root. Under root, there's a folder called etc. In that folder, there's a file called password. Since I already CD'd into temp, it copied it to the temp directory. That's all there is for this file, this program. It's not very difficult to use. I don't use this very often. I use this a lot more. I'm just very comfortable putting things over there. I don't really need an interactive session like Sftp. This is quick and dirty. Copy everything right away. But you know, some people might like this. There's a lot of commands that I can do here by typing help, and you can see all the commands that you want. If you type bye, it'll disconnect you. If you type exit, it'll quit Sftp. So I'm just going to type exit. That'll disconnect me from VM2 and exit Sftp. Okay, I'm going to look at the next topic. Okay, the next command we're going to look at is rsync, which allows me to synchronize files between two directories, or between two directories, one on the local machine and one on the remote machine. I'm going to first do the local machine. So I'm going to just go to the root of, I'm going to go to my home directory. So I'm going to make a directory called home backup. and this is kind of a silly example, but I probably wouldn't have created that on the root of the system, but just to demonstrate this command, I'll do it. So I'm going to do rsync. I'm going to turn on archiving and turn on verbose. Sometimes some certain characters might not copy well. By turning on archive, you have a better chance of everything copying the way it should. And I'm actually also going to do R to do recursive, meaning not only the directories in the directory I'm specifying, but all the files under each of those directories. So I'm going to do home. I want to synchronize home with home backup. So now if I list home backup, I can see there's my home directory, and then under that I would have the students directory. So it kind of just copied everything over. But here's the nice thing. So I'm going to touch home test file .txt. So I'm going to assume that there's a change now to the home directory. So I want to resynchronize it. So I'm going to rerun the command. And this time, it only copied over the changes. So it'll just automatically synchronize it between the two. So you're not going to do a full copy every single time. The first time you'll copy everything. The second time you're only going to copy the files that have changed. If I update the file, like echo home, echo something into home test file, you see how it updated it again because it realized that test file has been updated. So not only will it look for new files, it'll also look for files that have changed since the last time it did a synchronization. So that was between two folders on the same machine. Now I'm going to do the same thing between two folders on two different machines. So I'm going to synchronize the files on this machine with the directory on on VM2. So first I'm going to connect to VM2. I want to do something. I want to show you something interesting here. I have this thing, an uppercase C, if I can find it. Oh no, I don't need the uppercase C. This is not a Unix box. On Unix, I have to supply an uppercase C. In Linux, I don't need to supply it. So if I do this command, SSH VM2, that will connect me to VM2. Then after that, I can run a command. Make dir home backup. Sorry, I forgot my N. Let me just cancel that. Make dir home backup. So what it's going to do, it's going to connect to VM2 and run that command. Then disconnect me. And again, because I have SSH keys, it's not going to prompt me for a password. Now I'm going to do SSH VM2 list root. So if I'm going to look at that other machine, list the root directory, and make sure there's a home backup. And I have the home backup now. So now I want to synchronize between home on this machine and home backup on the other machine. So I'm going to do VM2 : so I'm going to synchronize home locally with VM2 home backup. That server, home backup. Hit enter. And it copied everything over. So let's list home backup. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to connect to VM2 and list that directory. There it is. So let's go in here. And there's my test file. So I'm going to touch home another file.txt. I have it locally. But I don't have it on VM2. So I'm going to do another synchronize between the home on this computer and home backup on the other computer. And again, the only thing that should copy is the changes. And again, it's an incremental file list. The only thing that's changed was another file.txt. And let's list the remote machine. And now I have it. So if you have two servers, you can use this rsync command to keep the two synchronized. If you have like a, let's say a website, you have both servers acting as a web server, and you make a change to one web server, well, you can have rsync update the other machine, you know, with the same web content. And you can have this rsync run every 5 minutes in the background and connect to the other machine and synchronize the data. So it's a pretty nice little utility. I'm going to pause the video and look at the next topic. Okay, that was the last topic for this chapter. I'm going to stop this video, upload it to the internet, and then record another video for chapter 14, installing and updating the software. Okay, that's it for this chapter. Thank you.